Hi everyone and welcome to this week's Wallsend History Story. This week is video number 3 in the look back at some of the old shops that used to be on Wallsend High Street. As said with the previous videos, this is what used to be there and what's there now, and a lot of the older shops will only have adverts as pictures. However, I am hoping to find a few old pictures that I can use again. Now, I won't know this until later because I normally record these and then I look for the photos later. I just want to add too that this is just a small selection of the shops. There's still a lot more, and some that I will cover in the next video, but some, as I have said before, that I might not be able to cover at all due to the lack of information about them. But I may do a very small video with just some of the sort of more unknown shops with little information and just put that one together as a little extra video at some point. Anyway, I hope you will enjoy this video and find it interesting. The first shop I am going to talk about this week is Middlemast, the grocers. Now, if you look at this old postcard, you can see the shop on the left-hand side of the picture. To work out where it was, if you look towards the centre of the picture, you will be able to see the Boots building on the corner of Station Road that I talked about in the last video. So Middlemast was one of the shops on the block just before the Station Hotel, aka the Penny Wet, which can also be seen in the direction of Station Road on this picture. The shop was situated at 31 High Street West, and it was established in around 1885 by Edward Middlemast. Edward retired sometime prior to 1900, there's no actual date, and the shop was then taken over by his son John. However, John sadly passed away in 1909 after an operation, although the information I found didn't mention what the operation was for. And the shop then apparently passed down to a Mrs. Emily Middlemast. Now, I wasn't entirely sure who Emily was, as John's wife was actually called Mary, and although he did have a daughter called Emily, she would have been too young to take over the shop, as even by 1911 she was only around 11 years old. So I think this was some kind of error in the original information that I looked at, as John's wife's middle name was Emily, and in 1911 she is listed as a grocer, and this makes much more sense to me than the idea of his daughter running the shop when she was just a child. One of the adverts for the shop in later years read, "We have stood the test for over 75 years. Give us a try and find out why." Now, they must have been a popular shop, as even without ever having the chance to try their goods, any shop lasting 75 years back in the early 1900s was doing really well. I don't know for certain when Middlemast closed down, but I do know that Mary Emily Middlemast died in 1950 at the age of 89. Sadly, I wasn't able to find where any of the Middlemast family are buried. In later years, the Hadrian could be found at the same location where the Middlemast shop once stood. The Hadrian was one of the first newfangled, a word that I do kind of love, self-service shops. They had shops in many locations in Wallsend and Hadrian, and this particular one that you can see on screen at the moment was not actually on the high street, but I did want to include the photo as it was the only one I could really use of the Hadrian, and they did have a kind of very distinctive look about their shops. They all had the similar sign, and this one was on the corner of Durham Street and Richardson Street. When part of the high street was demolished to make way for the new Forum in around 1965, the Hadrian moved to a new location in the Forum opposite the newly built at the time Anson Public House. And this later would become Presto's, and Presto's of course was the shop with the advert that said, "You'll be impressed in Presto's." Of course, I don't remember Middlemast as it was gone long before I was born, and I doubt any of you watching will remember it either. But I am sure that some of you will remember the Hadrian. Going back to the high street now, though, and looking at the location which was once Middlemast and then the Hadrian, and looking at that location today, I have to admit that it was quite hard to say for sure where it would have been. Because of the area completely changing when the Forum was built, it is massively different to how it would have looked back then. So I've kind of gone for somewhere in this general area. So, looking at the photo that you can see on screen at the moment, it could have been where Costa Coffee now stands, or it could have been in the area of the shop that is now currently empty, but it was definitely in this location somewhere between Betfred and the empty shop. The next shop that I'm going to talk about is Corners. Corners was on the High Street East and was a shoe shop originally owned by Mr. Harry Corner. Now, some of you may remember that the shoe shop was set back a little from the footpath and that there was a big pillar in the middle. And a lot of people remember this pillar because of doing Harry Worth impressions beside it. The pillar was still there until just a few years ago, but it was later removed when the shops were renovated. I say shops because it previously was one shop, but it now is two. According to one of their adverts, Corners apparently sold most good shoes. Now, I have to admit that that advert did make me smile because it made me wonder if some of their shoes therefore were rubbish. But based on a post which was shared on Wallsend Memories Facebook group a while ago, it seems that among other things, Corners stocked a wide variety of dance shoes, which it seems were very popular and also very good. I did do a little search on Mr. Corner, but sadly I wasn't able to find anything out about him. With it being later years, it's often very difficult to get any information. So I don't know when he closed the shop down. But over the years, the shop has had many other uses, and I seem to recall at one time, part of the shop used to have hundreds of keys in the window. Can anybody else remember that, or is it only me who can remember that? These days, in the same location, you will find these two shops. Now, I'm not sure if the OMG Hydro shop is still actually open. I haven't personally been in either of these shops, and the up-to-date photos that I took were all taken on a Sunday when most of the shops are closed anyway. And as is often said in the other videos, there is not very much sometimes that can be said about the new shops, so this is kind of it for these two. But while we're in this area and talking about shoe shops, there also used to be another shoe shop on the corner of Woodbine Avenue in the High Street, and this shop was called Benefit. Now, I wonder how many of you watching this can remember that shop. I am led to believe that it was definitely there in the 50s, and I have seen it on a couple of High Street photos. Now, I don't have a lot of information about the Benefit shop, and I do have to admit that until I saw a photo of it a few years ago, I didn't even know that it had existed. Sadly, I can't use that photo, so this one shows the area before the Benefit shoe shop was there. And I can't quite make out what the shop on the corner of Woodbine Avenue is selling. It's really quite out of focus when you look at that part. So if anyone has any ideas, then do please let me know in the comments below. In later years, one of the shops that I can remember being in this same location was William Hill's betting shop. However, the shop will have had several other uses over the years since Benefit closed, and Fairbairn's, another shoe shop, was slightly further along, but I will hopefully cover that in another video. These days, in the same location as the Benefit shop is this very empty shop. And until recently, the building was actually falling down. For years, the side of it on Woodbine Avenue was held up with huge metal poles, and it has to be said that it really did look awful. And in recent years, there was also lots of fallen brickwork behind a fence that was finally put up to protect people passing by, I guess. But over the last year or so, a lot of work has been done on the building, and it does now look in a lot better condition. However, the front of the shop still doesn't look too good. Too good. Shutters would definitely look better, but internally I do believe it has all been done out and the shop is now up for rent. The next shop I'm going to look at is on High Street West, and that is Law's Stores. The shop opened for the first time in 1959, and the newspapers at the time made quite a big deal of it, as it was one of the first supermarkets on the high street. Again, like the Hadrian, it was self-service, and one old newspaper photo showed the staff setting out the items in one of the refrigerated display cabinets, and the items that they were displaying at the time were sauces and pickles, which I have to admit that I never used to keep those in the fridge, and I also had to wonder just how many people even had fridges in those days, as I don't think that my nana actually had one until the 70s. In later years, one of the shops that I can remember being where Law's Stores was Winners. This, if I remember correctly, was a kind of discount food shop, and I think it also sold toilet rolls and cleaning products and things like that. And I am sure that many of you will remember Winners. And another that I remember in this location was a shop called Perfect Home. And this was another shop very similar to Bright House, which I mentioned in another of these high street videos. Perfect Home was there from at least 2008 until mid-2016. And then for around 3, maybe even as much as 4 years after this, the shop stood empty. In the same location today, you will find the Tyneside Community Store. And this shop first appeared on the high street in around 2020 or possibly a little sooner, and at the time it was known as the Community Clothing Store, later changing its name to the North East Community Stores before finally settling on the name that it has now. Now, I haven't actually been in this shop, but I do think that it is very similar to a charity shop. I do think also that it does have quite limited opening hours, as it seems to close around 3 o'clock most days, or it could actually be 2 o'clock. I can't remember for certain on that bit. The final shop that I'm going to cover this week is Greenwoods, and this shop stood on the corner of Atkinson Street and the High Street, and it sold men's suits, trousers and shirts. Now, I have no real idea how long the shop was on that corner, but it was certainly there in 1976, as it made an appearance in the Lightly Lads film when Terry Collier was driving the extra light washing powder van along Wallsend High Street. I am so tempted to say, up to the nose, smells like a rose. Well, look at that, I did. Well, you know, I hope that you might just remember that reference from the Lightly Lads film. And if not, then I am sorry, I just couldn't really help it. Just be thankful that I didn't sing the theme tune. Anyway, I have actually been in Greenwoods when it was open, and I used to go in with my dad. It always felt like an old-fashioned shop. And when I say that, I don't mean old and dull. I mean traditional, selling things like suits, etc., rather than just jeans and t-shirts. And there was always an assistant there to help you, to ask you what you needed and things like that. Greenwoods closed in August of 2012, and after this the shop did stand empty for quite some time, and it was not until around 2015 that the shop was taken over. And in the same location today you will find the Star Clothing Shop. Now, I believe this shop used to be in the old inn shops in the Forum, and when that closed down to be modernised, they moved into the old Greenwood shop, and they are still there today. Now, I have been in this shop, and they do sell a wide range of clothes for adults and children. And according to the sign on the shop front, Star Clothing was established in 1991. And I don't know why, but all the time I was researching this story and writing this story, I kept wanting to call it the Little Stars Clothing Shop. Now, I don't know whether that was because that was maybe the name when it was in the inn shops. If anybody knows, do please let me know in the comments below. Now, just like the previous videos, I would really love to hear some of your memories of the various shops I have mentioned in this one, especially if you can remember any of the later shops that used to be where the shops were that I have included in this week's video. That was actually quite difficult to say, and I do hope that it does make sense. So anyway, I do hope that you have enjoyed this short little video I was going to say, but it's actually ended up being quite a lot longer than I was expecting. But I do hope that you have enjoyed it about some more of the old Wallsend shops. And I do hope that you also found it interesting and that it maybe did bring back some happy memories for you. I do thank you all very much for watching, and I do hope to see you all again very soon.